So Phil and Matt, one of the great things about Destroyer is that you take a woman like Nicole Kidman and you put her in a kind of role that would normally be played by somebody like Clint Eastwood or Gene Hackman in The French Connection. Can you just talk a bit about where the idea for this movie came from?
Well, in a way, it sort of came from that character. I mean, we had sort of some notions about this story, some kind of ideas about the structure, about a feel, about a certain type of crime story. But when we discovered who Erin was, and specifically what her relationship was with her daughter, that's what kind of lit the whole thing up for us. And we were trying really hard to. We always wanted to have our eye on the fact that she was a woman who was able to carry everything in this movie. That her life and her world would be exposed as much in 360 degrees as possible. And sometimes in a sort of hard driving cop story, those things fall away. And we wanted to make the version of that story where it was not only do those things not fall away, but her life, what her life around this story is the actual point of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, the actual mystery of the movie is sort of secondary in a lot of ways. I mean, it's more of like an in-depth character study of a seriously damaged woman, and a lot of the movie is you're kind of figuring out how she got to this point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the movie is her kind of figuring out how she got to this point as well. She's kind of investigating herself at times, and it's definitely it was a character study first in its iteration, and then we had the like Phil said, we had like a notion of a structure, we had a notion of where this story was going to go, but it didn't really click for us in terms of the script until we found the character of Erin.
And she was, and as we were saying, is that it is so much driven by her interior. The entire story is driven by her interior world as she kind of navigates this exterior world. And so in a way, the story is told very intuitively and very much from her point of view.
You mentioned the mother-daughter aspect of it, and one of the interesting things about this movie is, we often see movies about men being neglectful parents or, not having enough time for their children and seeing the consequences of that. And it's really interesting to see that rule applied to a mother, because it's not something that we see often in films. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's also, just to expand on what you're saying, sometimes with a male character, it's not really even commented on. You know what I mean? It's just like given,
seen as a price.
It's just like given, that's part of the job. And this, we wanted to show kind of the real impact of her decisions and how she has been with her daughter, and we wanted to see like ramifications for this.
And I do think there's a cultural weight, wrongfully, there's a different cultural weight on portraying a quote bad mother, or a mother who struggles with motherhood or struggles with that role, struggles to fulfill that role in a sort of acceptable way. And I think that it was really important to us that's what hopefully makes this movie different, that we try to make it all more complex, and to honor the complexity that those relationships really do have. And the other thing that you discover, making the movie, is that she is, as a woman, the way she's treated by other characters in the movie there's added inflections by the fact that, in a movie that is a crime story, oftentimes you have a detective who is the one the other ones don't respect, or who is seen as the kind of lone wolf or the black sheep or whatever you want to call it. But that means something very different when those people are kind of disdainful, dismissive of her, because there's a completely different context for that sort of dismissal that to us makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense in a bad way.
Right. The film has a really interesting flashback structure. Can you talk about a bit about structuring the story and finding the appropriate places to put those flashbacks?
Yeah, I mean, it was always part of the plan, and you know, from script to screen, maybe a couple of them shifted a little bit, but it was really weird. The goal in them was to come in to these, like, to really treat them as memory, her memory, and come in as late as possible to some of the scenes, and give you just enough, and hopefully like the tableau is like potent enough to kind of give you the information you need, or give her the emotional kind of punch she needs at the time. And
I think we're trying to do, like, I think we discovered we knew certain things. We knew her final scene with Chris had to be one of the very last things that we saw, for many reasons that cannot be spoiled, I suppose. Right. And then with the other flashbacks, it was interesting because we knew that within the story that is really constructed as an odyssey, and so it's a sort of a movement across the city, and a movement kind of through people and into her past. The flashbacks they sometimes were cued in a more literal way, and sometimes are cued in a much more intuitive way, or a much more of a bank shot in terms of what is pulling her back to those moments and scenes. And it's kind of, as Matt said, we always saw them as these are like the gravitational centers of her memory, of her life to this point.
These are the things she keeps coming back to.
These are the obsessive nodes that she keeps returning to.
Right. One of the things that I really loved about the movie was how specific it is in its setting. I mean, as somebody who lives in LA, I loved how much LA was sort of a character in this. When you guys were writing it, were you writing it specifically for the city and keeping that in mind as you were coming up with it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's not possible for us to, much the way we can't conceive of the movie without Aaron, then we can't conceive of this movie as not a Los Angeles movie, because aside from the fact that there is a specific, like the LA crime story is its own thing, and we relate to that. I think that for this story, so much of it is about Los Angeles, and it is about a landscape of Los Angeles that we know as Angelinos very well. But that is not the LA that you see on film nearly as much. Everywhere from Frogtown to Palmdale to, quote, down by the airport, which is a very specific neighborhood, Aviation Boulevard, and everything in between that and also just the meaning, what LA means to us and what it means. Karin talked a lot about just what the sun means, what being kind of blasted and exposed by harsh sunlight means to these characters, and also what it does to them physically. So yeah, to answer, I mean, LA it's inextricable from the identity of this story to us.
Speaking of Karin Kusama, your director, talk a bit about what that collaboration is like, and what she brings to a project.
Well, Karin and I are married, so there's a connection there. Yeah. And
they collaborate
on. We've now, two movies recently, and a lot of other things have kind of created a real family, business out of making movies. And to us, what it means is just complete trust. We have such deep trust in one another, and she knows that we are there to, everything funnels through her vision for us. And on our side, we're able to give the best that we have and know that it's going to be received, and that we can be there every single step of the way, which means everything to a screenwriter, which means
It allows you to take, it allows you to, we have a trust that allows us all to take big swings and try stuff out and experiment. And it's a environment where that feels encouraged. And you know, I think working with Karin has been, it's incredibly inspiring, because she, not only she's incredibly collaborative, but at the same time, she is so focused and she has such a clear vision for every aspect. She plans everything out so intensely, that it's just, you go into every day knowing that you're in fantastic hands.
And I think, you know, it's also, I think we're three of us very connected in what we think is important, and what we, you know, both in movies and in life, and in trying to tell personal stories that also connect with, you know, the three of us are all deep believers in genre, and in the power of trying to inhabit those stories in a way that is as that can be the most profound to us. And so we both kind of have this one eye on, especially when you're doing a crime story. I think the connection we often found is you have one eye on trying to make everything as authentic, the world and the people as authentic and real, and you can really feel them as real people. And also one eye on the mythological and on the things about these stories that are reaching for something bigger. And I think we're all really committed to that and feel very safe with each other trying to accomplish that. And then when you add Nicole into the mix, who's very similar in her approach, where she is so committed to authenticity, and also so committed to the big ideas, and so committed to reaching and trying and pushing as far as possible. That's what made this collaboration so special.
Speaking of Nicole, I was actually going to ask, I mean, writers often talk about, you know, writing a character with an actor in mind. And did you have Nicole Kidman in mind for this? Because it's so radically different from anything we've ever seen her do. Or at what point did you realize she was the one for this?
We didn't write with it. We didn't write with anyone specifically in mind. We just kind of talked a lot about the character and found her through just the process of writing it. But that idea is usually incredibly helpful. But just in this particular instance, we didn't do it. And then as we were putting together financing, we were just starting to send out the script to agencies, and Nicole was in Cannes, and her agent sent her, you know, these are the things you should be reading, and she read Destroyer and you know, said, I want to meet with Karin. I love this. I want to do it. And so, you know, it was a pretty great call to get.
Yeah, and Karin's spoken about this before, and it's really true that, like, the thing that's so amazing, one thing that's so amazing about Nicole is that she's at this stage where she is, to me, an artist without any compare, you know, and who's also a movie star, who she still has this desire to connect, and she's so curious and wants to explore, and that she will seek out a script. She had met with Karin a couple years ago just because she wanted to meet her and wanted to connect and you know each other, and she got this script and she read it in a day, and just, she's so direct. Like she said to Karin, she said, I cried when I read this, and I know when that happens what I have to do. And so once you hear Nicole Kidman wants to play your character, it's sort of it's a pretty wonderful thing to hear.
There were no objections.
And again, she hasn't done something like this before, but the second you know that, to me, I know she can do it, but she showed up with, it's like so much humility and so much commitment to the exploration, that the second I saw her, also, I was just seeing Aaron Bell. I was not seeing Nicole at all. And that doesn't come from the exterior. That's also the interior. Like, the energy that she had on the set as this character and as this person was really profoundly specific and kind of amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very brave thing to do. I mean, to play a character who, when you first see her, is so unlikable and off-putting, but then, you know, to burrow underneath and try to find the wounds in her past that led to that. I mean, it's a really it's a brave thing to do for an actress like that.
Yeah. And for Nicole and for all of us, feeling empathy is the key to everything, not just for the character, but for all the characters, and for, in a very dark, you know, story with a lot of dark corners in it, and a character with a lot of dark corners in her, to find that empathy and to expose that, you know, because I think she's a character who does not care about being liked and does not take any steps to be liked, you know, because she, for her very own specific reasons. And I think, but it's her, the character and the performance has such a magnetic power, just to me as someone watching it, that that's the point to me.
She's just fearless. I mean, I think she's so, it was such an inspiration to watch her kind of probe and find and play this character. And we had a joke, speaking of what we were saying, we shot the present day stuff where she's kind of battered first, and so the first few days she was just kind of laughing. It's like, this is great. Everyone just, like, every character in the scene is like saying, like, you look tired.
Really telling me how it's a lot of commentary, so, isn't it, guys, on this character?
Yeah.
And that's and as Matt said, like, her other thing is, like, she is willing to throw herself in, but she also will acknowledge her fears, and that makes her even more brave. That she is you know, that this is a really specific character, and a really it's a rare thing for any character to dominate a story the way this character does. And that was always what we knew about this story, was that it is riding on Erin Bell's shoulder. It is all about her, and it is about the world that she has created around her and the world that is inside her. And so that is a very rare thing. There are not many examples of that, and Nicole is one of the very few people one can imagine getting there.
Yeah, it was pretty. She said something once that I took a lot of inspiration from, which was, she was talking about how when a role scares her, she tends to move toward it. And so, like, I think this role was a bit of a, you know, she was, it scared her a little bit, and yet she took it on, and I think, you know, she did an amazing job with it.
Well, it's a great movie, and thank you so much for your time. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
You're welcome.